Welcome to the Missouri Valley Conference Game of the Week preview show presented by Mercy, the official orthopedics and sports medicine provider of the Missouri Valley Conference. With head coach Ben McCollum, I'm Harry Schroeder. Wednesday at 6 on your local Gray Media station and on Matrix Midwest here in St. Louis. The Bulldogs will be taking on the Northern Iowa Panthers. And Coach, and you're new in the program, but not new to the area. This is a big time game in the standings, but it's a big time rivalry game between Drake and Northern Iowa.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I grew up in the state of Iowa, so I was probably more familiar with Iowa State.
Sure.
Just when you're in Northwest Iowa. But my wife actually went to UNI, so ironically. But no, it's a. I think they've created a really good rivalry. I think obviously Coach DeVries had a big part in that. Where he started to get Drake to where they were a little more relevant. And then obviously Coach Jacobson has done a great job for his entire time there. So we're glad that we have the opportunity to play in these kind of environments, and hopefully it'll be a fun one on Wednesday night.
Oh, what is it going to take for us to get the Big Four playing against each other again in a big neutral site, Iowa, Iowa State, and you two?
I think you just call the coaches for Iowa and Iowa State. I would guess that the UNI Panthers and the Drake Bulldogs are probably all in on that. So if you can get one of those Zooms set up with them and see if we can do that, that would be fantastic. Because I'd be all for it. It would be a blast.
Those used to be spectacular things when they had them in the neutral sites, and then when they had them where people traded off, those were great traditions. I think this maybe the Congress there in state of Iowa ought to mandate it or something.
Yeah, I think so. I can see why. I mean, it makes sense where they don't come to your place.
Sure.
Like there's, I think even to play because Drake and obviously you and I have had a lot of success. I can see why, power fours now, I guess, don't want to play successful mid majors just from a net perspective. I can see it. I think it would just be great for the state though.
Totally.
Just to have those games, and it'd be fun venue. I can understand them not wanting to come to Drake or to UNI or whatever, but to just play on a neutral would be a blast.
Be spectacular. Before we talk about Northern Iowa and the game that's coming up, your game this weekend was a nail biter, and you guys going to overtime. But talk a little bit about the scrappy nature of your team. I was actually listening to the game in my car driving across Illinois on Saturday, and the announcers kept talking about some of your players, Jackson and others, that were just playing gritty, scrappy defense, getting the 50-50 ball, those kinds of things.
I mean, that's what we have to do to be successful. One, I think naturally, if you're going to have a high level of success, I think your culture has to be that way where you're not afraid to do anything to be able to win that basketball game. And for me personally, that's what I've always thrived on as a player and as a coach was, just making the extra efforts. And I think that's what good teams do. I think with our team this year, just based off of how the roster is constructed, that's something that has to be a strength of ours. And it's been up to this point. Obviously, we're taking more shots than what we would have early in the season. I think our expectations from an external perspective were pretty low, and so naturally you get people's normal game. I think now we're getting people's best game, and that's okay because I think that allows you to improve throughout the season so that you're at your best come March.
You guys are halfway through the conference season, and obviously you're excited about your win and loss totals and all of that. But how would you evaluate halfway through the conference season where your team's at? You talk about making progress all the time. How do you feel about where your team is at?
I think we're gaining a level of maturity, just from being ready every game standpoint. And I didn't think we were at an elite level at Missouri State, which sometimes can be a good thing. Just
Hmm.
kind of learning exactly how you have to create that habit of being ready every single day. And I think our kids are responsive to that. I think they're building towards that. I think they're understanding their roles even more and buying into that and wanting for each other's success. So a lot of it's more just the emotional, mental side of it. Like, hey, in order for us to be successful, yeah, do I see Alabama run up and down the floor and shoot a bunch of threes? Well, yeah, okay. Well, we don't have Alabama's personnel, right? So
Hmm.
we have to find different ways and creative ways to be able to win based on what our personnel says to do. And every year is a little bit different. And I was fortunate enough to coach at Division II, where you don't necessarily pick your personnel. There's years where you're shooting. I had years where we had 5 guys on the floor that all shot over 40% from three. And offense was a little bit easier then, right? But defense was a little more difficult. And so, now it's just how our roster is constructed. We really sold out on tough kids and kids that want for each other's success, and they're slowly building towards that, to where they can be at their best in March.
It really is an art form, isn't it? To help guys, everybody on your team was a star somewhere, and then to get them to understand the value of their role if they're not the star.
Yeah, I think in today's climate and today's culture, particularly with a social media perspective, is you can get enamored with individual success, and it's kind of like it's a cheap fix for a little bit. But ultimately, if you focus on that team success and you create those relationships within the team, um, for the long term, that's gonna last for you for essentially ever, because those are friendships and connections that you can have for a lifetime. And sometimes with friendships and in a team environment, you have to sacrifice a lot of things from yourself, and I do too, and our whole team does, and that's what makes sports fun. Not yeah, the one shining moment, as they will. It's the grind, it's the sacrifice, it's the love that you have for your teammates, and I think our guys are understanding that.
Before we talk about the game and matchups for this week, what do you see in Ben Jacobson that has made him so successful for the 19 years there at Northern Iowa?
I mean, he's a class person, first off, and I mean, he's what mid-major basketball is about. He's obviously won quite a few games, but I think more from a personal perspective, he does a lot for the community of Cedar Falls. He does a lot for the Valley. He does a lot for a lot of people, and I think that's probably something that you would admire a little bit more than even just his coaching acumen. His teams are always tough. They always they don't beat themselves essentially. They always compete. They always fight, and obviously they've got a great eye for talent. So he's as good as there's been in mid-major basketball, and again, we're excited to play.
Talk about the matchup this Wednesday at your place and what you have to do to slow them down, speed them up, whatever it is you're going to try to do.
Yeah, good question. I don't want to tell you my whole game plan, Harry. No, no. We don't, and just like them, they don't overcomplicate it. It's not a rocket science deal.
Mm.
It's do what you do and do it a little bit better and play hard, and that's kind of the concept of it. Obviously, you have little things that you're going to tweak and adjust, but I think the coaches that try to sell out and win one game and change everything, then hurt themselves for the next game. And so, he's the type that when he goes into a game, they do what they do. Obviously, they're gonna make some adjustments, and that's how we're gonna do it as well.
When you look at a guy like Titan Anderson, who I was watching him up close this weekend, uh, man, these guys just relentless on all 94 feet of the floor, and he's diving and he's jumping and he's colliding. And I mean, I call him a chaos creator. He's a different kind of player, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a winner. I mean, that's what winners do. Like that's how they play. Is they're not afraid to do a little bit of everything. And that's who he is. I remember seeing him in high school and loved his game in high school, and obviously he's gotten better and better and better, but he hasn't lost, kind of that winner, and that's what he is.
Appreciate your time today, head coach Ben McCollum. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot, Harry.
Our Wednesday night coverage begins at 6 p.m. Central. For information on where you can see the games, head to mvc-sports.com. For the Missouri Valley Conference, I'm Harry Schroeder.